to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 73. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, we don't have a guest
Nope.
because of social distancing.
Well, I mean, yes, but we're usually socially distanced even when we do have guests because we use the power of the internet.
I know. That's one really fun thing about recording this podcast is that nothing has changed in this podcast. And it is one of the
Nope.
few areas of life where nothing has changed.
That's
and that's been pretty great. I'm already used to sitting at home away from other people while we do this podcast. So it's
Yeah.
physical distancing, although socially, me as an extrovert, it just fills me up. So the reason I was bringing up social distancing is because we want to talk about the coronavirus,
Yes.
the number one piece of small talk I've had in my life for the last, I don't know, month. Like it's
Yeah,
been,
probably close to a month now.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe, not quite 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but yeah. So Cheryl and I were talking and realized that that COVID-19 has had a fairly significant impact on travel. And since we're doing a travel podcast, that it may be appropriate to go ahead and talk a little bit about what the impact is, at least so far, and any perspectives or thoughts or what we've been thinking about our own travel and kind of how to think through some of that stuff. For reference, because things on this are changing pretty much every day.
Yeah.
We are recording this on Thursday, March 19th, 2020. So anything that we say here is based on our current understanding as of this date and what we can see online. So if you are listening to this significantly later than that, things may have changed a lot.
Yeah. And that'll be weird because I was even thinking like about conversations I had even a couple weeks ago and how different it is now. I think before we get into the impacts of the virus on travel, I think it would just be interesting if we just share about the impacts on our lives.
Yeah, just our everyday lives.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. Why don't you start?
Okay. Well, so I'm an event planner.
Like events, say, greater than 50 people all together at the same place?
Yes.
I just
hopefully.
randomly grabbed that number.
If it's a good event, if it's not that, then I've kind of failed at my job actually. So yeah, I work for a nonprofit and I'm on the fundraising team and I coordinate all of our fundraising events. And if you are familiar with the world of fundraising, you know that this is fundraising season actually. So
Oh, is it really? This is the standard season?
spring and fall are the good seasons for fundraising, specifically fundraising events. You could argue that December is fundraising seasons because that is when a ton of giving happens.
Which I've never understood, but okay.
I think it has to do with taxes.
I know that, but the taxes don't change in December. Like it's just the end of the year.
I think
don't
it's
know. I've never
people
understood
trying
that,
to
but-
figure out if they've given enough to qualify for different tax things. And so
Okay.
it's people looking at their
sure.
finances. And I think maybe also the Christmas spirit has to do a
Sure.
little bit with that
Yeah.
too.
And then summer people are traveling, so I'm guessing that's why that's a lull.
Yes. And
Yeah.
especially, I mean, you and I are both located in the Seattle area, and I feel like people are checked out to make future plans when it's summer because the sun comes out and we all lose our minds a little bit. And so,
Yeah, it's true.
yeah. And so it's interesting because even, so like my nonprofit, we were going to have our largest fundraising event of the year on May 5th. And, we are no longer going to have it on May 5th. As of now, we've postponed it until the fall. We also typically have a fundraiser in the fall, so it will just be now one large fundraiser as opposed to two for us for this year. We also increased our financial fundraising goals by quite a lot this year. So, it's kind of a scary time for us to figure out. We're providing housing for families experiencing homelessness, and we're trying to figure out how do we do that, and how do we provide, meet those financial goals for our nonprofit. It was interesting, though. I was watching one of the press conferences, one of many at this point, of Governor Inslee, the governor of Washington. And he was talking about, it was kind of the first events mandate that we had here in Washington.
Which was about a week ago, I think, actually, because I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday last week.
Just 3 counties. They were saying until the end of March, you can't have events over 250 people.
Right.
In these 3 counties. And then a gentleman from Pierce County came on, and he specifically said, I know it's fundraising event season for all these nonprofits, so make sure to support your local nonprofit. And we were hooping and hollering in the office as we watched that. So, so for my job, it means, I'm working from home, as many people are, because I can do my job remotely. But I am no longer planning a large event. And actually, we canceled one event. We were going to have a 30th anniversary celebration for our nonprofit. Canceled that. And I thought, oh, that's a bummer. And then this will be done soon. And then a couple weeks ago, we started having the conversation about canceling our large fundraiser. And my response was, that's ridiculous. And it's too early. It's 8 weeks away. This is silly. And then the press conference happened, and then another press conference, and then, suggestions to cancel all events for the next 8 weeks. And we just realized, we have to cancel this. And so, so my job is extremely different right now because I'm not doing any of the work that I normally do. What's really fun is I get to support my team and help in other areas of fundraising. And I get to get ahead. I use Basecamp for my project management. And I've gotten really good at to-do lists where I have every single task on a to-do list for planning a large event. And I deleted over 100 tasks from my to-do list.
Because they no longer applied.
They no longer applied. And it felt real good. And now I'm looking ahead to the rest of my year because I'm just kind of assuming it'll move forward. But we normally have summer concerts. We'll see if we're going to have those. These little fundraisers we do. And as of now, we're planning an October event. We'll see, And so... it's interesting being able to work ahead now and everything too. So, and I don't have any flights right now booked. And I'm planning a road trip to a national park this summer. And I mean, right now, national parks are even offering, free admission. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
That's one of the cool things is national parks are like, hey, come visit us. We may not have our same stores or restaurants open or restrooms or things like that.
Yeah, but we got wide open spaces.
There are some national parks. I don't know if it's all of them, but it's a lot of national parks are offering free admission to people who can travel to them right now. And so hopefully I'll still be able to take my trip this summer. But I think for me, a year ago, I was engaged and planning a wedding, and also my sister was pregnant, and I took a lot of trips last year on a plane, and I'm so happy this is not a year ago, personally in my life, you know, that I don't have a wedding I might have to cancel or, different things like that. So, how about you, Ryan?
So I'm a high school science teacher and schools are closed until the end of April.
Woohoo! School's out.
Sort of. And I won't bore you with all of the details, but basically things are kind of in this fuzzy gray area right now because we can't go to full online school because we can't guarantee that all students would have access to all of the instruction that we would make available if we were to use some of our online tools. So we're offering learning opportunities, but that aren't graded. Because
And
that's
how many
really
people have
motivating.
taken you up on those
Well,
opportunities?
I've only had things up for 2 days.
Okay.
Because because communication has not been as clear as maybe we would have liked. And so trying to get stuff up. And I mean, I've had more students do stuff than I expected. I was like, it's not graded. I don't think anyone's going to do it. And there have actually been some students who have. And I don't
Okay.
know if it's because they are motivated. I don't know if it's because they didn't really know it's not graded. Although it's in every email, both from me and from the district. It says very clear that they're ungraded. I don't know if it's because they have parents who are saying you must do this. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like you're just sitting at home doing nothing, do something productive. You know, I don't know why some are and some aren't or whatever. But so that's interesting to try and deliver content 100% digitally, which is not what I usually do. That's not my job. I'm not an online teacher. We don't have tools that are set up for specifically online classes. Like there's a digital component to what I do, and I try and make things available, but they're still dependent on in-person interactions and in-person contact and touch points and, you know, asking questions and getting help if you don't understand and correcting work and, you know, all of those things. And we just can't provide those. So it's been this kind of figure it out sort of a thing where I've gone from being with 150 plus students every day for my workday to being with myself at my computer. And so far, and it's been, you know, not even a full week of this, but a week since our school closed, at least we closed last Thursday. And so far, I mean, I'm an introvert. It's great. From that, you know, ignoring the whole work aspect and all that sort of thing, just me personally, I get to sleep an extra hour later and I'm already here and I don't have to go anywhere. And I am getting interaction with people through, you know, because we use some online stuff just for our team collaboration. And so we're sending messages back and forth and emails and things. So I feel like I'm interacting with people, but I don't actually have to leave my house, which is great. And then you and I, you know, we're podcasting. We've actually podcasted one other time this week and, you know, kind of connected. I've had some phone calls with friends and, you know, just some things like that. So I haven't felt super isolated per se yet.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see what happens in, you know, another 5 weeks from now. That may be a different deal. I don't want to be under the illusion that it's going to be great. And I've also gone from, I stand for, I don't know, probably around between 5 and 6 hours of my workday. I'm standing because I'm not usually sitting when I'm teaching. I'm up, I'm walking around and pointing to things. I'm walking over and helping students, you know, lots of just movement, and I'm not moving. I'm just sitting at a desk, which I'm not used to. And so that has been a transition for me of just like, I just need to stand up and stretch. And I'm going to go walk to the kitchen and get some water because it gives me something to do where I'm not sitting down at my desk.
Yeah.
You know, so, and just the pressure of my job has lifted as well, which there's something validating about this where I can still work a full contracted day without actually getting up front and delivering instruction to my students. That's why I'm super busy and super stressed all the time, because there's enough work without the 5 hours of teaching that I do every day to keep me busy for a full-time job. And now I actually have the time to do it. Like for the first time in my career, I can actually do all those things. So that's very interesting, I think, just because what does that tell me about the nature of the amount of work that I have to do in my job?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I transitioned to a full-on desk job about a year ago, and
Yeah.
it's rough. It's hard. I've been trying to figure out ways to fight the weight gain and the, just like laziness. I mean, just like my body has like adjusted to not moving as much. And
Yep.
I don't like that. I like my job a lot. I don't like the full-on desk job aspect of it. So
Yeah.
since working from home, I've been actually like taking a break in the middle of the day and walking and enjoying the sun because we've had sun. And that you can still have your social distancing that way, which is great. And that's been really good. And I'm hoping to, how can I get some good new habits in my life from
Yeah.
this change
Yeah.
of pace? So
Exactly.
yeah. All right. One more question before we get into how it's affected travel that I just
Okay.
thought of. What's
Yeah.
been your favorite meme about the coronavirus?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I have one. Why don't you start? Let me see what I can find to refresh my memory.
Because there's a million of them, and I like a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm not usually in the meme world a ton, so
I just see so many on Facebook these days. And so there's a few I like. Okay, here's one of mine. Are you familiar with the Babylon Bee?
yes.
Okay, so for those people that don't know, the Babylon Bee is like the Onion, so like fake news, like satirical news
Yep.
site,
Yep.
but for Christians, which
I don't think I think that's the way it started, but I don't think it is entirely anymore.
what?
Just for, kind of the evangelical Christian community. I've seen them post things about stuff broader than that.
Okay, yeah, it's mainly about Christians, or at least it started that way.
I think
this
that's the way
one
it started,
definitely
yeah.
is. So here's the headline. I follow them on Instagram because I don't even know if they do full articles, but the headlines are really what gets you.
Yeah.
No greater love. Widow puts last toilet paper roll in offering plate.
Oh, jeez. Okay, I'm sorry. You brought it up. So I have to go there. And I apologize. If those of you don't want to hear a rant, then just, skip forward for a minute or something. But toilet paper, really, people? Toilet paper? That has nothing to do with the coronavirus. Nothing at all.
Yep.
And neither does bottled water. Bottled water and toilet paper? Okay, people in the United States are stupid. Stupid. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I agree. I actually think bottled water is way worse than the toilet paper thing because let's say you were quarantined for a year. Let's go to like these, I don't know why people think they made that much toilet paper, but let's say you were. Let's say you couldn't grocery shop for a year.
Okay.
Then you eventually actually would need that much toilet paper. But like
Sure.
the pipes are still working. There's nothing wrong with our plumbing system. So you don't ever need bottled water, especially in an emergency situation, like just drink tap water. And so, and I know not everyone drinks tap water, but still, like if you were just stuck at home, you could start drinking tap water and you would be fine. And so,
Yeah.
that one kills me even more. It's so funny. I think what it is people just go to like emergency. I'm stuck in my house and snow is coming and we might have, and like I think people like without realizing it prepare just for like what they know of weird stuck in their house situations, which has to do with like either power outages or like snow or things like that, I'm guessing. And so, but that doesn't have to do with toilet paper. I mean,
No.
like get one extra pack of it. I did that,
Yeah.
but
No.
I don't know. It's so funny. So, but all the toilet paper memes have been killing me a lot.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I have two more for you.
All right, go for it.
They both have to do with kids being home from school specifically.
See, I feel like there was something that I saw that was like that, and that's
Okay,
what I'm
I
looking
have
for, but I
two
can't
for you
find it.
that I really
Okay.
like about that. Here's one. If you see me talking to myself this week, mind your business. I'm having a parent-teacher conference.
Nice.
And another one I liked was homeschool day one. Wondering how I can get this kid transferred out of my class.
Nice.
All right. Well, let's talk about how it's affected travel.
Yeah. So I think we can talk sort of just big picture first, and then also I think we could talk about our personal connection to travel, people we know, our own experiences, things like that.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest one is, as of today, let's see, what is it called? The Department of State has a global health advisory, and they have brought travel to what they call level 4, which is the highest level possible, which is do not travel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like I just saw this very recently. So they say, the Department of State advises U.S. citizens to avoid all international travel at this time due to the global impact of COVID-19. Many areas throughout the world are now experiencing COVID-19 outbreaks and taking action that may limit traveler mobility, including quarantines and border restrictions. Even countries, jurisdictions, or areas where cases have not been reported may restrict travel without notice. So the U.S. government is basically saying, don't travel anywhere internationally.
Wow.
And that makes sense because I think yesterday the EU basically closed all their borders to any either permanent residents or citizens, saying we're not letting anybody else in. So a lot of countries are starting to really try and lock down to prevent the spread of the virus. So, it's not a great time to be trying to travel internationally.
Yeah.
I was talking to my friend Alex, who's been on the show before. I was talking to him last night, and he has a friend who I also know, and I think you do as well, who is now living over in the Czech Republic.
Yes.
And who's getting married.
Yes.
Like supposed to be in a couple of weeks, I think next month in April.
No, really?
And so and his entire family is here in the States. And so don't even know what that's going to be like. Alex was talking about, I'm not going to be able to go to his wedding anymore because, I can't go. They're not letting people in. And so I don't know if that means they have to reschedule the wedding or how do you reschedule a wedding? You planned a wedding. That's not an easy thing to do, to just reschedule a wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah.
But if your family can't be there, especially.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's some major impacts going on with this as far as travel goes. Even there have been rumors, I haven't seen anything that's actually credible, but about certain states maybe closing their borders. I don't know if they can really do that. I think the federal government can do that. I don't know that a governor could say no one can come into our state.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a political question. I don't know the answer. Someone listening probably knows, but I don't know.
It's also just like we're kind of in this time where things that I didn't think would happen are happening. I didn't think that restaurants would just close. You know what I mean? Just like, I think the difference between a restaurant choosing to close versus now it's like, no, they are closed is, it's like, who knows? In a state of emergency, what else is going to happen, And so, and how long it's going to last either. And so I know I was even thinking like, oh, if, we just went drove somewhere, it's like, I don't think I would drive out of this state right now just because I don't think I trust that state borders wouldn't just close at some point because and also things are happening very quickly when these decisions are being made. It's pretty fast. And so, it is not the best time to be that far from home. I think just, so yeah. I was reading online that 55% of Americans have had to cancel upcoming travel plans.
I guess I can believe that, especially with spring break coming up. A lot of people travel for spring break, whether it's college spring break or K-12 spring break, and whether that's flying somewhere or a road trip or camping or whatever. There's a lot of travel that happens around that time. So yeah. And another thing, connected to that I think you and I talked about, not while we're recording, but Disneyland and Disney World are closed. Actually, all of the Disney properties around the world are closed.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That's a super big deal.
Yeah.
And they closed before it was mandated that, the group size thing, at least for us here. I think they did that in California as well. And I'm not sure about Florida. But they preemptively closed, which I was thinking about that anyway. I was texting with my family and I was like, how long until Disneyland closes? Because that's a big, giant group of people.
Yeah.
That, and they never had an instance. They never had anyone there, as far as I know, who was infected. But I mean, I think it was a wise decision on their part. But again, that's a major, when you see those things happen, right? And there are like movie theaters are closed.
Yeah.
Right? Like the entertainment, those things are closed. And so now I don't remember. There was one movie studio, and I don't remember which one, that I saw a news report about, and I could probably Google it here real quick, but that was talking about releasing their movies. Some movies are being delayed, that they'll just release them in theaters in a couple of months when hopefully things are open again. But other ones were talking about doing a digital release at the same time that it would normally come out in the movie theater. So you could pay to then watch it at home and to do some streaming with it. Because I know like Disney Plus, for example, they released Frozen 2 on Disney Plus, I think at least a month earlier than they originally planned, because everything was shutting down. And they're like, hey, this is something that kids can watch and families can enjoy. And I do think and I hadn't seen it before. I have now seen it. Have you seen it?
Yes, I saw it in theaters. Yeah.
Okay. And I do think that, especially kind of the main new song of the concept of Into the Unknown, kind of a timely theme.
I know,
right
right?
now, because it's all super unknown for us right now. So
I had a friend who was in Amsterdam and Paris. Maybe it was a month ago now. I'm forgetting the timeline of all of this happening. It was like right when it started being like, oh, okay, so they're still choosing to go, but not like, are you kidding me? Why are you still going? So whenever that was.
yeah.
And the Louvre was closed. And that was the first I had heard of anything being closed.
Yeah.
Was when he posted about the Louvre being closed. And so that was, and it was kind of like, oh, wow, something's closed because of this. And now everything is closed. And so, but so that was interesting. Hearing about that.
I did look it up. It's Universal. That's the movie studio that's going to be doing available on demand during the COVID-19 outbreak. Some of their movies you could be able to. I mean, you still have to pay for them, obviously, but as another option.
Yeah, I think it's interesting seeing companies get creative with how to stay in business and how to serve people during this time, and all of that has been really interesting. Yeah.
Yep. So with all these things closing and with all this stuff changing, one of the things that I've heard a lot and think would be worth us talking about, because people are not traveling, there's all these travel advisories going up and things, is that plane tickets are supposedly really cheap and also really flexible right now.
Yes.
What do you think about that, Cheryl?
Well, it's very tempting, and it's interesting because I think you were one of the first people to tell me about that. And did you actually take advantage of a flight?
I haven't yet.
You're considering it.
I am considering it. I actually have a notification on my calendar for when the particular deal expires. Ooh, and actually it just extended now that I'm looking it up online. But you continue, then I'll tell you more about.
So, I think it sounds really interesting. And it was funny because even one of the things I saw, like a Facebook ad for this like really amazing deal for this like all-inclusive resort somewhere, like crazy amazing deal. And then I saw a bunch of comments on it were like, well, yeah. And then they're going to take all your cash. And then by the time you use this thing, this company is going to go under, And so it was like, that was an interesting criticism I hadn't thought about before. I'm a very trusting person though. And so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was interesting thinking about that skepticism. But I found this article on CNBC online that is urging people to not just jump at all of those travel deals, for a couple reasons. one of them being that we still don't know what the next few months or even this year looks like. And so if there are any travel deals that are like just for a certain window of time, you know, just in the coming months, it's saying like, well, you don't know, like, will the borders be open? Will you be able to travel there by that date? Like, it might seem like far enough off right now, but we really don't know what's coming this year. And so I thought that was an interesting point. It also talked about just, we also don't know what new travel policies are going to be in place with traveling to different places. And so it's hard to choose a destination right now. You know, we don't know what's coming, even if different countries or different areas have different policies in place based on this experience. And then also it talked about travel insurance. And so one thing it urged is, it says, if you jump on one of these deals, read that fine print very carefully. What does it look like if you do need to cancel this after all? When do you need to use it by? Whatever it is. And so if you're going to go for it, then just really make sure you know which ones have like free cancellations, essentially.
Right.
And then another really important thing it talked about is you don't know where you're going to be financially. And so maybe don't spend money on travel right now, because Americans are, and people all over the world, I'm sure, I've just heard about, you know, in our area, but people are losing their jobs left and right, or even like if they're not losing their jobs, they're losing hours at work. And the economy is looking really different and will probably continue to look pretty different. And so it might just be a smarter time to save some money, and, you know, like you might end up needing those reserves instead of, you know, putting money into a future trip right now. Which is always kind of a bummer thought for me, to not be booking a trip, but also is like, you know, that's a really good point. We just, you know, it's not really the right time to be planning much in the way of future travel. So, though I thought those were some good points. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think you should buy a plane ticket just because tickets are cheap, because what's cheaper than buying a cheap plane ticket is buying no plane ticket. Right? Like, that's the way that we're marketed to all the time, is like, look, if you spend $300, you can save $50. Like, or I could spend no money and save all of it. Right? Like, that's not the mindset that we're used to, I think. I think there are some people who are, but in general, we're not. But if there are trips that you are already planning or thinking about doing. So, for example, we talked about on this podcast the experience that I had going down to visit my sister in February, and how we all got sick, and it did not turn out the way that we were originally planning. And my sister and I have talked about quite a bit, basically doing a do-over trip, where I come back down and we try it all again and hopefully have a great time and we're not all sick, right? And so we're looking at dates in either November of this year or February again of next year, right? So months and months away, something that we are looking at doing. And so I started looking at plane ticket prices. First of all, while yes, they're a little bit cheaper, I haven't seen, at least the fares that I've been tracking, because I've used the flight tracker on Google Flights. They haven't dropped significantly since I started tracking them, which was before things really started closing and all that stuff happened. So that's the first thing, is yes, they are a little bit cheaper, and who knows, they may still go down. But I haven't seen a significant drop. I mean, I haven't been tracking all of them, obviously, but with some of them, there's a decent drop, like of about like maybe $300 for an international trip that I was looking at doing potentially. But then flying down to see my sister, it went from $207 80 days ago. Okay. Right, so that's almost 3 months ago. And right now it's $187. Like, that's not that big of a difference.
No, it's really
that's not, saving a huge amount of money. Now, granted, even the $207 is not, that's a pretty good price for flights.
Is that round trip or one way?
That's round trip.
Oh yeah, that's a good price. Yeah.
Yeah. But it wasn't just from the coronavirus. So first of all, anecdotally, again, I have not checked all prices to everything, but I haven't seen ridiculously deep discounts. So there's
This
that.
website I was looking at says there's been an average of a 12% decrease in airfare and a 6 to 7% average reduction for train and bus travel over the past week due to the coronavirus.
Okay.
And I believe that.
Sure.
I also am getting emails like from Alaska Air where they're like, oh, what were some of the emails, like $20 plane ticket? And then you look and you're like, oh, from this one city to this
Right.
other city.
Right.
If you do that Super Saver one, and I
Yep.
don't live in either of those cities,
Right.
and
Yeah,
so
but I feel like they market stuff
Yeah.
like that all the time. The other part though that may make me go ahead and buy tickets anyway. Again, if I'm looking for like November or February, I'm looking really far out.
Yeah.
And a number of the airlines, and I typically fly Alaska because Seattle is one of their major hubs. So I can get most of the places that I want to get to domestically on Alaska, and they're very competitively priced typically. But they have, and I was just looking at their website, they just updated it, but they have a no change or cancellation fee if you purchase, right now. I'll have to look at it again because
read
it's
that fine
changed.
print.
Well, and it's changed. So that's why I don't want to say what it was if you buy a ticket between, I don't remember, it was February something and the end of March 31st, and you travel anytime between then and the end of February 2021. If you have to change anything, there are no change fees.
Great.
Right.
Good.
And if you have to cancel, the worst case is it just credits to your account. Right. So that you may not get the money back per se, but you could still use it towards the purchase of another ticket later, as opposed to just losing your money and stuff. So like it was one of those where the deal was good enough when I was looking at it that I was like, well, it may be worth it to just go ahead and buy the ticket because it may not be a super, super low deal, but it is a reasonably priced ticket. And that still gives me the flexibility to change it if I need to.
Yes. For a trip you are already planning
That I was
on
already
taking.
looking at doing. Exactly. I'm
Yes.
not doing it because it's cheap or whatever. So,
Yeah.
and it's not like I'm going to go fly in April, so
Yeah.
I will say though, that because I've been talking with some people who are extra concerned about being on a plane during, when they're worried about viruses and, planes are already so gross and all these things. And I think my opinion is a little bit different than that. First of
Okay.
all, there's bacteria and viruses everywhere you go all the time. So I don't know that planes are any more germ infested than any other sort of mass transit, I guess, like a bus or a train or anything like that. If you've got the same number of people and they're all sitting in places, like that's not as big of a deal. One thing that a lot of people talk about is that recirculated air. But I
That
actually
is the
heard
number one thing I hear pointed out is the air.
But the one thing I will say though is I did hear from I don't know if he's an epidemiologist or an infectious disease specialist or whatever, but that actually planes, because they're recirculating the air, have ridiculous filters on that and will filter out most of that stuff. Yes, okay, you may be more dry and those things, but actually drier air can oftentimes be better than humid air as far as not contracting things and not inhaling other bacteria and viruses and things. So at least his opinion was a plane is not going to be any worse than just being out and about in normal everyday everything. So now granted, it will be worse than you being sequestered in your home because being out anywhere with a bunch more people is going to have that same level of, increased risk. So you have to make those decisions for yourself, obviously.
Yeah. I have heard the advice of if you really feel like you do want to go somewhere, obviously this would be depending on how far it is from home, drive instead of fly, because then at least it's just you and the people you're traveling with in a car that only you have touched and only, that you're, and so it is something where if you feel like you really still want to do it, to consider that option, which sounds like good advice to me.
So the expert that I was referring to, he's Dr. Michael Osterholm, who's actually, I don't know if he is a doctor, but he's Michael Osterholm, the director of the University of Minnesota's Center for Infectious Diseases. So there you go.
All right. That's interesting.
Yeah. So he's the one who talks about the recirculation of the air and all that sort of stuff, to not saying that you're not going to get sick if you go on a plane, but a lot of the things that people are extra concerned about, it's no worse than any other form of transportation that you'd do with other people. So just to throw that out there.
That's interesting. I just found a National Geographic article about how the coronavirus spreads on planes and the safest places to sit.
Oh, really?
So it's talking about how respiratory illnesses actually do spread. And so then obviously it's talking about in a plane, you're not just gonna necessarily catch it from the person sitting next to you, because people move around in planes as well. They go to the bathroom, they stretch their legs, things like that. So it has a visual of a plane, like a map, a seat map. And it says that passengers in window seats have the lowest likelihood of coming into contact with an infected person. And so it has this color map where it shows where an infected person might be. And then pretty much if you're in a window seat, you will just be further away from them.
That makes sense.
But illnesses are most likely to be transmitted only to passengers within one row of the infected person.
That also makes sense because, the distance, when they've talked about the social distancing, they've said, 3 to 6 feet away. And just FYI, in case this is useful, if you're like, I don't know how far that is. If you hold your arms out straight to kind of make your body into a T shape so that your arms are horizontal, fingertip to fingertip for the average human being is usually about how tall you are.
Yep.
Right. And so I'm about 6 feet tall. So I have a really good gauge of about how far 3 to 6 feet is. Right. So it's a little bit farther away than what you may say, maybe twice your arm's length. Right. That's the distance that they're saying as far as, it's the little droplets during a cough or something. Right. Those are what are going through the air, and then they will fall down. They just can't stay up in the air. So it's not like someone coughed 5 hours ago and then you walk through that air that they coughed in and now you're going to get it. So that makes sense that if you're, at the window seat, you're farther away from the aisle, you're farther away from places where people could potentially be coughing and sharing it. But of course, if people are coughing into their elbow and doing, these other things that they should always be doing, then that would help too. But it is one of those things where it's very easy to spread for a whole host of reasons. I mean, for most people, the coronavirus is not actually something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
If you get it, you might be sick for maybe 5 days a week. And then most people are going to be fine. What people are concerned about is the people who aren't going to be fine if they get it. And then also just the capacity in medical facilities, which I think are both legit things.
Yeah.
I kind of look at it a little bit like vaccinations, where not everybody can get vaccinated. And so it's important for as many people who can get vaccinated to be vaccinated to create the herd immunity. If you're familiar with that concept, because if you have a lot of people who then aren't spreading that disease, then those people who are at risk are much less likely to get it. It's not quite the same thing, and it's not really a herd immunity, but it's a similar kind of thinking. Why are we shutting things down if really it's not that, it's not going to kill that many people or whatever? That's a big reason, is because there are some people who really are vulnerable and we don't want them to get it. And then obviously the big thing that's been going through social media this week is the whole, flatten the curve thing, which is valid. I've seen some good articles about that and some good descriptions and things. I've also seen some things that sensationalize it and make people freaked out more than they need to be. Go figure. But that's where a lot of that's coming from.
Another thing I wanted to talk about is how this affects two of our podcast guests.
Yeah.
So we have had a past guest and then actually the guest of next week's episode. are
right.
Peace Corps volunteers. And so we interviewed Hillary a little while back about her experience with the Peace Corps. And at the time, she was back in the States and about to head to Albania.
Right.
And
Yep.
then next week's episode, we interview Michelle, who is a Peace Corps volunteer in Benin.
Right.
And Peace Corps has temporarily been canceled, essentially.
Yeah.
So, and I'm seeing on their website actually the announcement letter about it, and pretty much what happened was the Peace Corps just, I mean, they are, as we learned from Hillary's episode, they're kind of protecting their volunteers who are living in other countries. And so for the protection of them and just for a number of reasons, they chose to bring all of the Peace Corps volunteers in other countries back home and then temporarily suspend them. And which I learned from secondhand from Hillary's situation. My sister actually told us that that part of the reason of that was so that they could have the chance to get better health care than the health care that the Peace Corps is able to provide for them while they're back in the States. And so like Hillary is back in the States right now and quarantined. I have not heard an update on Michelle right now, so I hope that she is either on her way home or already back home. And then it was interesting that Hillary, she was sworn in 2 weeks early officially to the Peace Corps because, she had that training time that she was talking about. So, and I think that might have been so that she could then go home and be dismissed from it and everything officially or something like that. And so, so kind of a weird situation for her, that like she just got to Albania and was just there for the language part and the training part of her program. So that's pretty interesting how many people, like how many Americans were displaced, because of that, because this whole program pulling,
Right.
Their volunteers during this time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a major impact on travel for sure. For sure. Early on, I heard someone say, now, again, this one I cannot confirm, so this may be inaccurate, but I heard someone mention that the impact on the airline industry has been greater so far than the impact of 9/11.
Wow.
Now, again, I do not have that confirmed. That may be misinformation. I do not know this for sure. I have not been able to fact check that, but
interesting.
Even if it isn't, it obviously is still a major impact on the airline industry.
Yeah.
And I think just on the travel industry in general,
Yeah.
and airline industry worldwide, not just in the US. Right.
Another interesting impact that is more on the positive side of things is that I saw an article about one of the positive effects of having less tourism right now. So in Italy, for example, you can now see the sea life in the canals in Venice because they're clear.
Because there aren't so many boats and things just going through.
Dolphins even have been swimming right up to some of the major port areas in Italy where they normally don't go. And so it's interesting that nature is kind of what is nature doing with way less people moving around and being out and about. And and then in China, apparently emissions are at a really big low right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Because of, a similar thing,
one's
way less
driving,
people going
they're not,
around.
emitting all of the carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just really interesting to think about, you and I love travel. We love, tourism, all those things. And yet it's interesting how that has an impact on our environment, and so.
It definitely does.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing to hear about. So we're not traveling right now, Ryan.
No, we are not. We may be traveling at some point in the future. I will probably be back at California at some point. You are going to go to a national park maybe this summer, hopefully.
Hopefully 2 national parks on that trip, actually.
Okay.
So,
okay. So hopefully we do have some travel in the future.
Yes. But in the meantime,
I don't know.
what should we do? what should us and our listeners do without, probably some of our listeners have had canceled travel plans or are wondering if they need to cancel plans coming. What should we do when we're not getting this travel bug that we all have fulfilled? What are your suggestions?
Well, I have several suggestions, some of which are self-serving and selfish, and some of which are just straight up my opinion. So The first thing is, you should listen to travel podcasts like Take Me With You, because we have over 70 different episodes that you could listen to, even if you've heard some of them before, and travel vicariously through other people who have traveled. That's our whole podcast. So that would be something people could do.
Absolutely.
Yep. I would also say, I think as difficult as it probably is, I think it's a great time to refocus on family. If you're at home more often, we live such busy lives, especially in the corner of the country and the world that you and I live in, Cheryl. And I don't want to say that that's not the case in other parts, but I don't live in the other parts, so I can't speak, knowledgeably about that. But very, very busy lives where a lot of the day is planned and you're going to this thing and then that thing, and then you do this event and you do that sports thing and you do that, there's just a lot going on, and a lot of that has been put on hold. And I think that there's the possibility and the opportunities for some really healthy family relationship building that can happen, I think, during this time. I think being able to truly take some time to rest and be more reflective, like where are you at in life? What are your relationships like? What are you happy about with where your life is? What things maybe would you like to be different? How might you make changes to it? Things that we don't often have the time to do. I think now there's a lot more time for that. Is there a book you've been wanting to read that you haven't had a chance to read? Are there projects that you just never get around to that maybe now you have time to do because we're not doing as many other things? So I think those are some really potential ways of taking this not so great situation and really getting something positive out of it, I think, and being able to grow and deepen relationships and listen to more podcasts. What do you think?
I think in addition to what you shared, that now would be a great time to do some dreaming about a world where we can travel again, and what are some trips that you hope to take in the future. And that could be taking some time to research places and look things up online and you and I talk about researching travel a lot. And so I would say go ahead and do some of those things. And then a part of planning for future travel is now, I think, really is a good time to save money. Just all around. I think it's a great time to save money.
I'm going to say it's always a great time to save money, just for the record. But yes, it's an especially great time to save money. Yeah.
And I think none of us really know. I mean, we never know what our futures hold, but right now, there is certainly a little less security in jobs right now. So that's a great reason to save money. Also, we're all not doing as much. So I've already received refunds for various tickets I had for shows or things like that. We're not going out to eat maybe so much. I mean, maybe order takeout and try to support your local restaurants when you can, but just not going out and doing as much, other than, the amount of money you spent on toilet paper, hopefully maybe we're just not spending so much right now. So go ahead and save, and then start saving for that trip that you want to take a year from now, 2 years from now, whenever that is in the future, when we still now know how to properly wash our hands, but we no longer have to stay 6 feet apart from everybody all of the time. I think that would be a suggestion of mine. Another suggestion would be reach out to us if you would like to be a guest on this podcast.
Yes.
Because I think something that we have found from a lot of people who have been guests on this podcast is they have so much fun reliving a trip they already took. And so they're pulling up pictures from the trip, and maybe if they took notes on the trip or had any planning docs or anything, they're pulling those up and kind of reliving a lot of the details of trips and getting to talk about a trip that they took. And so that's kind of another way I think to, I mean, sometimes at the end of that, you can feel like, oh my gosh, now I feel even more like I need to plan another trip. But I think it's also just fun. Like, we love travel. So come talk about travel with us. We would love to hear about your trip.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And speaking of cool places to go that we may want to think about, I think it's time for us to transition into Wish You Were Here's.
Yes.
So what we'll do for this segment is you and I are each going to highlight a travel attraction from some place that we have been before, some place that's cool. It might be a restaurant or a particular museum or an event or something cool. And it's just like a little snapshot, like a little postcard that says, hey, this thing was really cool. I wish you were here. So Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here?
Well, I was thinking about, some things that, as we're talking about suggestions of things to do while not traveling or not going out to eat so much. Something that I am going to try to do is do some hiking and being outdoors. And that's something that everyone can enjoy. And so I thought I would do a place outdoors that I enjoy. It's not a hike. However, it's a great outdoor attraction that, I don't know if they're open right now, but they might be able to stay open because it's a garden on Whidbey Island.
Ooh.
It's called the Muirkirk Gardens, and it's in Green Bank on Whidbey Island.
Yeah, but you forgot it's Muirkirk Gardens, a peaceful woodland garden.
Yes. Oh, that was a really good voice. You could be a yoga teacher.
Thank you. That's what it says on their website. So
I know they actually have a really good website. I was just looking at it. So Whidbey Island is the longest island in North America. So it's important to say which city on Whidbey Island because it's not, it's actually big enough that it takes like an hour and a half to drive from one end to the other. So it's in Green Bank on Whidbey Island. And it is a rhododendron garden, although they have all sorts of flowers.
I've heard about it. I didn't realize that was the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have a ton of rhodies there, and then obviously a lot of other flowers too. But it's a great garden. It's definitely like feels like Pacific Northwest, which is really fun too. Where there's also it's so green and lush. I went there in the spring, and that was wonderful. And it is really peaceful there. It's a really nice place to walk around, and it's flat. So if you just want like an easy walk, that's nice too. I would say that's something everyone could do right now, actually. Not all at once though, but one at a time. We will let you go in there.
Yeah. And I did just check on their website. They are saying that their gardens are open.
Oh, great.
At least as of right now. Yep.
How about you, Ryan?
So I actually had a similar idea. I was thinking, okay, since we're kind of talking about, hey, we're not going lots of places and doing tons of travel, what would be something that would be easy to do that you could still do now? And of course, since I live in the Seattle area, this is one of those sorts of things. And so I am recommending the Washington Park Arboretum, which is in
I love that
Seattle.
place.
Yeah, it's by the University of Washington. If you're familiar with the area, there's the 520 bridge that goes across Lake Washington. And just as you get on the other side, the University of Washington is right there on the north side, but the Arboretum is off on the south side. And it's very large. It's got lots and lots of paths and trails and things. Again, it's not really hiking per se, but it's beautiful. And so it's just, some of it is just more or less kind of more natural looking of just the trees and bushes and shrubs. But then they also have a what do they call it? Like a botanical garden. That's what it's called. And they have a lot of different plants and trees and flowers from all over the world. And it's just really, really cool. And especially this time of year in the springtime when things are blooming, as long as you're not allergic to them, it can be really, really beautiful and a really fun place to just kind of go walk around and enjoy being out in the beauty of nature.
It's a great area. It is one of my favorite places to do portraits for people. So like senior pictures, engagement photos, family photos, things like that. Because there's such a variety of backdrops there, which is really fun.
Yep.
And did you mention like the boardwalk dock type of area that are like these paths you can walk on the water? Have you gone to that area?
I've done the canoes around them, but I've never actually walked on them myself.
So yeah, part of the Arboretum is that you can walk on these like boardwalk type of trails on the water, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's so fun. It's a bit of an adventure because sometimes they're sinking a little bit, so you have to be a little careful. But yeah, I need to go to the Arboretum. I should go there soon. You got me inspired.
Wish you were here. Awesome. That's great. Well, I think that's it for this week's episode, unless you can think of anything else, Cheryl.
Don't get sick.
Good advice. Yeah. I think I'm going to follow that advice. We would love it if you would follow us on social media. We are at Timwy Podcast, TMWY for Take Me With You Podcast, on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. Send us your suggestions of things to do while you're quarantined and not traveling, or contact us and tell us which date you want to record your episode of our podcast.
Yes.
Because we really would love to have you come tell us about a trip you took.
Yes, we would. You can also call us and leave us a voicemail to tell us how you're coping with kind of the not quite quarantine, but kind of quarantine, or how you're approaching the travel differently with all of the COVID-19 things, or questions maybe you have about, hey, what should I do? Should I take this trip? Should I not take this trip? What should I plan on? We'd be more than happy to hear those. You can call us and leave us that voicemail at 406-763-8699, or if it's easier to remember, 406-POD-TIMWY. We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review our podcast, share it on social media, and subscribe to make sure that you don't miss an episode.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the use of her awesome artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
That's all we got for you this week. Please stay healthy, wash your hands, and don't be ridiculous in buying too much toilet paper or bottled water. And until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you!
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and light little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here want them to be